We hope you enjoy today's story. By the whims of fate, I met my wife, Linda. And by those same whims, I discovered that she was cheating on me. Though these events were separated by years, they both occurred in the same place, my workplace in the bustling city of Honolulu, Hawaii. The project that led me to this realization started as a coincidence. I enrolled at the University of Hawaii, determined to obtain an MBA degree and land a job at a Fortune 500 company. Even with government assistance, I still had to work to make it through school. In high school, I had a knack for computers, so to earn extra cash in college, I offered my computer repair skills. Eventually, I started building custom computers and selling them at a lower price than Best Buy. I earned my bachelor's degree, but decided not to pursue a master's. After all, I had my own business. Why work for someone else? In college, I learned that I wasn't great at interacting with people. This lesson proved as valuable as my degree. I met Linda's brother Don before I met her. He had issues with an old Intellivision gaming console, a relic from the 1980s that his father cherished. The console hadn't worked in over 10 years, but Don found it in the attic and wanted it restored for his father's birthday. Don Eldridge was as tough as nails. His chest was nearly a rectangle, and he played football as a defender in both middle school and college. Back then, he let his curly chestnut hair grow long and wild, and he had a beard to match. Add to that a large nose, which some might call a snout, and his name being Don inevitably led someone to dub him Mastodon. The name stuck. Whenever he made a move on the field, fans would make elephant noises. Despite his imposing appearance, Don was incredibly friendly. He was the type to extend a hand to lift up a player he'd just tackled. He had a sense of fair play, combined with some intimidating skills on the football field. If he hadn't injured his knee in the final match of the University of Hawaii Football League, he could have made it to the NFL. The Mastodon belonged to a Hawaiian royal family. Although I wasn't athletic in the slightest, I always followed the Rainbow Warriors. Yes, that's the real team name, chosen by our alma mater long before rainbows became trendy. While I decided that continuing college wasn't for me, I maintained a certain loyalty to the place where I spent 4 years learning what I didn't want to do next. So, when Mastodon, Hawaii's most eligible bachelor, walked into my shop, I was a bit taken aback. By the way, my name is Ryan Novak. Don slapped my back so hard it nearly dislocated my shoulder and said, "Hey Ryan, I won't be a bachelor for long." For some reason, a woman accepted my proposal to marry my unassuming self. My sister is the most attractive in the family. That didn't set the bar too high. I named my price, which I discounted due to my fondness for Don. I asked for a photo with an autograph as part of my marketing efforts. 2 weeks later, I actually met Linda when she came to pick up Don's repaired computer. I was impressed. She had the same curls and long chestnut hair as her brother, though she was more petite and undeniably attractive, with dimples that complemented her subtle sexuality. We started dating, and that's how I met her best friend, Don's wife, Candace. Candace and Linda had been inseparable since elementary school. Candace had harbored a crush on Don since puberty, and eventually, Don noticed his sister's friend and began pursuing her. Or so the gossip goes. Candace was a beauty, one of those Hawaiian women you see in tourist ads, with a blend of Asian and native islander features, and God knows what else in her attractive mix. I had no doubt she was targeting Don, and he was powerless to resist. We all shared memories, some of which I wasn't part of at first, but eventually I fit in. The only noticeable thing was that Candace never allowed anyone to call her by the obvious nickname, Candy. One evening, when I asked her why, she replied, "Candy sounds like a brainless stripper." I never wanted anyone to think of me that way. Don and Candace got married, and shortly after, so did Linda and I. We had 2 children together. Don, unable to have children of his own, and Candace adopted 2 kids around the same time Linda gave birth to ours. It felt like we were all synchronized, part of a close-knit quartet. We loved being close to each other, and our kids played together. We were practically in each other's lives every day. But as fate would have it, something so perfect couldn't last. The gods seemed to despise eternal happiness in our lives. As I grew my business, Linda didn't have to work. I repaired and built computers and even restored old arcade games and home gaming systems. But things changed when our kids became old enough for school. Linda wanted to work part-time. I had no issue with that. Why would I? I didn't want my beloved to be bored. Linda found a job at a credit card company's call center, working 4 hours a day, which allowed her to drop the kids off at school and be home before they returned. I was happy, she was happy, and we should have been on a poster for model families. It was Candace who accidentally revealed to me that Linda was cheating. It was a typical workday for me when Candace called, frantic. "Ryan, I really need you to work on my computer. It's an emergency. I need it done right now." Her laptop had turned into a hunk of metal that wouldn't even boot up. Candace was an aspiring writer, and her stories were only on that laptop. I assured her I'd do everything I could, after giving her a lecture on the importance of backing up her work on a flash drive. It wasn't hard to recover the data. Candace had loaded something she shouldn't have. Curiosity got the best of me, and I started looking for the culprit. It turned out to be a photograph Linda had sent via email. It was a picture of a very handsome man, shirtless. Later, I learned his name was Hunter Sampson. Linda's text accompanying the photo read, "This is my boss." The photo and the exclamation mark made me delve deeper into Candace and Linda's emails. Without going into too much detail, Linda's boss had sent her this photo, and she shared it with her best friend. I told Candace about this, and she confronted Linda about it. Linda downplayed it, saying it was just a photo of Hunter surfing. But Candace was furious and bluntly told Linda that she was dangerously close to crossing a line. Linda relented, agreeing not to indulge in anything like that again. Everything seemed fine, but I remained suspicious. Did it really end there? I wasn't sure, so I checked Linda's laptop. Knowing my line of work, she was smart enough to delete any incriminating emails and clear the trash folder. What she didn't delete were her sent messages. This folder was an eye-opener. Many of her messages were replies to previous ones, so I quickly got a clear picture. Linda had sent Hunter a photo of her chest. Although she didn't send any more revealing photos, despite his requests, she did promise to send one when he sent a picture of his tool. He simply replied that she needed to see him in person because no photo could do it justice. The emails only got worse from there. Yes, they had sex. They raved about how good it was every time they met and couldn't wait for the next time. That evening, I decided to confront her face to face. This had to be handled delicately. It was a Wednesday, and the kids had school the next day. I didn't want the neighbors calling the police. Children usually remember moments like these. When I got home that night, I responded to her greeting with, "Hey dear, how was your day? Let's talk about it later." She sensed something was wrong. Maybe I had a horrible expression. She didn't press me. We had dinner and put the kids to bed. Then we sat on the couch. She looked at me and said, "Whatever is on your mind, I hope you know you can talk to me about it." I placed my hand over hers. Linda seemed touched. "Of course you can, dear. I'm your shield," she said, squeezing my hand. I squeezed hers back, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "I'm very concerned that you're having an affair with your boss, so I would really like to talk about how we will handle the divorce so that it doesn't harm the kids." She withdrew her hand from mine as if it were radioactive. Her face turned pale, and she made a sound like a dying animal, then rushed out the door, got into the car, and drove off. Things didn't go as I had planned. I had prepared a whole speech, and her sudden departure ruined that. It felt worse than a lie. I had rehearsed so many comments in my head. It only got worse. I had to get the kids ready for school in the morning, and that was not my forte. I had no outlet, no explanation, and suddenly I became a single father with 2 kids. For the next 2 days, Linda remained silent. I had no idea where she was or what she was thinking. She simply disappeared. Explaining her absence to the kids was a stalling tactic. Until I heard from her, I had no idea what to say to avoid traumatizing them, so I told them what I thought they could understand without worry. Mom is visiting Aunt Candace and Uncle Don. As it turned out, that was the truth. Linda was staying with her best friend and brother. I found out about this over the phone from Don, who invited me over to talk to Linda without the kids. I loved Don and Candace, and it was clearly an intervention. Curiosity made me agree, as well as the desire to finally deliver my speech. The intervention took place at Don and Candace's house. They sat on the couch, a united couple. Linda and I sat in comfortable chairs facing them. Looking back, I realized it was a good arrangement. It was as if Don and Candace weren't taking sides, but rather we were both on trial. Don began the conversation with, "Ryan, I love you. You've been a wonderful husband to my sister, and I will always adore you for that. However, I know that my sister has caused you pain. It hurts me too, brother. I want you to know that. I hurt for both of you." My nails dug into the armrests of the expensive chair I was sitting in as I said, "I'm glad you can feel my pain. I'm glad you can empathize. I really wish Hunter could share my pain too. I mean, he really played his part in this. I would like him to feel pain throughout his entire body because that's exactly how I feel right now." "I hope you're not thinking about physical violence," Candace interjected. "Just a little bit. I want to hit him with a cricket bat." "Why not a baseball bat?" Candace asked with a slight smile. "Because I don't want to end up in jail for assault, and I think a cricket bat might cause less harm. I also like the image of this flat, flying bat smacking him on the butt. I want his body to hurt so much that it's painful to put on or take off clothes." "That's impractical for two reasons. Why? We live on an island where nobody plays cricket, so where will you find a cricket bat?" Don was right. "And the second reason? Violence never solves anything." "I disagree. It stopped fascism in Europe. You can't compare Hunter to a Nazi." "Well, you're right there. There's no comparison. A Nazi never slept with my wife. I know the worst thing for you is the lies and deceit. This breach of trust will be hard to mend." I was silent for a few seconds. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my reaction to Linda's confession. "Actually, that's not the worst part. The worst part is that you had sex with someone other than me." Linda tried to salvage what she thought was a chance for me to accept her sincere and repentant admission. "I had sex with him only 7 times. I nodded. What a relief. Thank God. Only 7 times, not some unforgivable number. Since you all seem to be experts on this matter, what exactly would be an unforgivable number? I looked at everyone in the room. No one answered. I wasn't expecting anyone to because the question was rhetorical. Don tried to defuse the situation. Once, twice, 100 times, that's not the main issue. What's important is that Linda wants to restore your marriage and is incredibly remorseful. Candace chimed in. "Can you be sure that the problem you're facing isn't your ego?" I didn't have to think about how to respond. "I can answer that unequivocally, Candace. Of course, it's my ego. I just can't believe you're all here trying to downplay this." Don said, "Listen to me, brother. Your ego is what you can control. No one is trying to minimize it. You can strengthen yourself by defeating your ego. Why let it stand in the way of true love? Look at it this way. Forgiveness is a gift you give not only to the other person, but also to yourself." I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone or Los Angeles. "So if I had an affair with a woman 7 times in 3 months, you would forgive me?" "Oh yes, absolutely. I wouldn't like it. It's the worst thing I can imagine, but I would take you back. I'll prove it to you. Have an affair. Reconcile with me. I deserve it. I want you to have an affair. Please do it if it helps us be together again. It can be with anyone." I admit she was saying the right words. "Linda, why did you do this?" "It has nothing to do with you, Ryan. When Candace and I were hanging out together, she always had an attractive friend, and I had a less attractive one. I never got the handsome guy. This was the only time a handsome guy showed interest in me. This didn't improve my mood. I knew I wasn't handsome. What surprised me was that Candace seemed angrier than I was. "Do you really blame me for everything, you jerk?" I was afraid Candace would scratch Linda's face, but Don held his wife back. Linda stood up and said, "I was just jealous. Oh, please don't think I blame you. You're my sister. It was my insecurity. I don't want to lose our friendship." Candace stopped struggling and said, "We've always been and will always be sisters. I'm so sorry you didn't get the handsome guys. You deserve that, although none of the handsome guys compares to my Don. I wish you knew earlier that looks aren't everything." I felt the conversation slipping away from me, and at that moment, I was most worried about myself. I tried to steer it back. "Candace, I know you love your best friend, and you say I'm a good friend too. If I cheated on Linda, would you be just as forgiving? Would you convince her to reconcile with me? Candace somehow moved away from the emotional moment and said, look, she was able to compartmentalize her life. What she did has nothing to do with you. She lived two different lives. That sounds like nonsense, I replied. I know it's hard for men to understand, Candace said, but all women are capable of this to some extent. That was unexpected too. I turned to Dawn. If Candace cheated on you for 3 months, would you forgive her? Dawn looked offended. That's a ridiculous question. Candace isn't some dirty trash who's going to betray her husband, spread her legs for some guy, and risk her marriage. Linda started sobbing. Dawn softened. I mean, we all can succumb to temptation, even Candace. She'll always overcome it, but if that doesn't happen, I'll forgive her. Even if she gives in to temptation 7 times. Once, twice, 100 times. That's not the point. It's important to deal with your male ego. So, my love for Candace is stronger. I thought that was utter crap, so I asked his wife, Candace, if you cheated on Don, whom I know you love, would you expect him to forgive you? I can't believe you're even asking me. I'm not some scumbag. Linda screamed and curled into a fetal position. Candace rushed over and hugged her. No, not you, Linda. You're not a scumbag just because you had sex with another man besides your husband. Linda wailed even louder. Having sex with someone else doesn't make you a scumbag. You're not a scumbag. You did it not for money. You did it because you have low self-esteem. Linda began shaking and hitting herself in the face. I saw Dawn contemplating whether to call an ambulance. Dawn and Candace held Linda's hands. I tried to bring some sense into the room again after Linda stopped attacking herself. I looked at Candace. So, let's see if I got this right. Linda wants me to have an affair. Dawn says he'll forgive you for an affair. You're saying it's normal for someone to want sex with an attractive person. Did I get that right? Yes, Dawn replied. We're all telling you this. Candace, you also told me that I should love Linda as much as you do because I married her. Yes, Ryan, you married her for better or worse. Dawn and I care more about her well-being than you do. She's clearly a hot piece. Well, I said, you all have given me a lot to think about. It seemed like now was the most appropriate time to apologize and end this. I liked Dawn, I liked Candace, and I damn well loved Linda. Erasing them all from my life would be painful. However, that evening turned into a circus, and not in a good way. That night, I left feeling like I had destroyed their close relationships, but none of them really cared about me. I returned home and spent hours staring at the ceiling, reflecting. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, enlightenment struck me. I actually fell asleep for 2 hours after replaying it in my head several times. I woke up to the doorbell after drinking my first cup of coffee. Yes, I wake up after the first cup of coffee. I don't remember how I somehow got the kids to school. I wasn't sure if I fed them. It was Candace. I invited her in but remained cautious. The previous night was a shit show. I poured myself a second cup of coffee and poured one for her. Sorry for the shit show yesterday, Candace said. I almost spit out my coffee when she echoed my thoughts. A few seconds later, I said, I've decided that you're right. You care more about her well-being than I do. So I have a solution. I'm glad you came to your senses. I paused for dramatic effect. You and I will have an affair. 7 encounters. After that, Linda will be completely forgiven. What? Seriously, what? Linda said I could have an affair if it helps, so I believe her. Don said he'd forgive you if you cheated, so I believe him. You said you thirst for me to forgive Linda, so I believe you. I need to talk to Don about this before even considering it. This will ruin everything. Linda hid this from me, lied, and kept me in the dark. Everything has to stay the same. Don already said he would forgive you, so there's no need to consult with him. Linda never told me. I caught her. Tell him when it's all over, if necessary. Damn it, I want you to tell him after everything is over, but not before. It still won't be as underhanded as Linda was. I will definitely tell Linda too. And how the hell am I supposed to see Dawn every day and keep this a secret? You need to compartmentalize your life. I've heard from you that women are better at this than men. I don't think I can do it. There's too much to think about. Why don't you just find someone else? Well, I'm almost certain I won't find a suitable beauty who really attracts me. I'd probably have to hire an escort. That doesn't work for me. You have a personal interest and an amazing body, so you are my choice. She replied, I need to think about it. Of course, that meant no. I wasn't surprised that Candace didn't actually mean what she said that evening. She simply didn't see herself in this mess. I was making plans for a divorce. Unexpectedly, 2 days later, Candace changed her mind. "I've decided to accept your demand." I wish I could say it was because she was crazy about me, but alas, the real reason was mundane and perhaps predictable. She appeared at my house in a rage, not even knocking, but just opening the door and bursting in. "I can't take it anymore. She's driving Dawn and me crazy. She's ruining my marriage." At that moment, I could have said something sarcastic, but when things are going well, it's better not to interfere. It was frustrating because I really had something to say. Candace agreed to all my conditions. Her only demand was that I truly forgive Linda if Candace followed through. Honestly, I didn't expect her to ever agree to everything I said, so I hesitated for just a moment. After a brief pause, I responded, "Absolutely. I'm only doing this because she's my best friend. I don't really like you right now." However, she agreed, and that was what really mattered. We started working out the details. It will look suspicious if you immediately forgive Linda. How are we going to sell it to Linda and Dawn that you're taking Linda back? I had an answer to this question. All I needed was to offer Linda a lifeline. That day, I called Linda during my lunch break. "Linda, I need you to report your relationship with Hunter to HR." "Report what?" "I can't claim it was sexual harassment. I'm not going to lie." "I'm not asking you to, my dear. I'm not asking you to do anything unethical that would weigh on your conscience. However, after reading your employee handbook, I found that there is a policy against relationships between supervisors and subordinates. One of the measures to prevent the possibility of sexual harassment. You really work for a good company, so just report the relationship." She did it. It turned out that Hunter was married to a very wealthy woman with a prenuptial agreement. It's a gift when your enemy puts their own head in a noose and all you have to do is kick the chair out from under them. Let's just say something unpleasant happened to Hunter and he left Hawaii, never to be seen again. After Linda did this, I welcomed her back home. I greeted her with kisses and we made passionate love the night she returned. Linda and I were together again, though it was conditional. I hadn't let go of my reservations. Linda felt it. We made love and acted like a family, but she knew I hadn't fully forgiven her. She knew there was still a wall between us. She was right. That wall wouldn't come down until Candace committed. Candace didn't back down when I arranged our first date. I decided to make it spectacular. I booked a room at the Four Seasons with a king-size bed. I scattered rose petals on the slightly turned-down bed. I lit candles and made sure they wouldn't set off the smoke alarm because I had turned it off. She would see a bottle of champagne and a vase of strawberries when she walked in. This was going to be an illicit affair, and I was going to play the lover's role to the end. I wanted her to be involved, so it was only right that I was involved too. It turned out to be easy for me. I was looking forward to it, and although part of me felt that Candace might back out at any moment, I wasn't going to be the one to kill her mood. I was going to do my part and trust that she would do hers. If not, we would just go back to where we started. Candace disrupted my plans. She showed up in a long coat, which was very inappropriate for the climate, and with what might as well have been an overnight bag. "Ryan, what's with the champagne and strawberries? This isn't going to work." "Why not? I already have the most romantic, wonderful, best lover at home. So I don't want you to even dream of becoming the best lover. Sweep those damn rose petals off the bed. I also don't eat strawberries, and just give me a few minutes in the bathroom." "Does this mean you're backing out?" "No, it just means we're going to have sex, not make love. I better not see a single rose petal on the bed when I come out of the bathroom." She walked in with her bag and slammed the door shut. Old Faithful was standing at attention even before she entered the room. While I waited for her to come out, the poor guy wilted with every passing minute, and I thought, what the hell is she doing in there? The woman who came out of the bathroom was clad in a black bra that was a size too small and black panties that looked like they were painted on. Her freshly applied lipstick was a shade of red that I think is called Make Love to Me. "So, if this works out, I'm Candy. You won't make love to me. You won't call me Candace. I'm Candy. I'm not your lover. I'm a call girl. Every time we meet, I'm Candy, and I'm here to please you and have sex with you. Those are all my plans. I was all hers. Call me Candace once and it's over. From this moment until we're done with hot and sweaty, I'm Candy. Any problems with that? Why would there be? I grabbed her, and our tongues started dancing in no time. It wasn't at all what I had envisioned or planned. It was much better. Candace, or was it Candy, walked me over to the bed, pushed me on it, and just pulled down my pants and started pleasuring me. It was the best oral sex I've ever had in my life. I thought I would die afterward. Our pillow talk was a bit unconventional. I was in a post-orgasmic haze, and she talked while I listened. At that moment, I was very receptive to everything she wanted to say. Here's how it works. You don't have sex with Candace. You have sex with Candy. Mess up even once, and I won't be able to handle it. Don't say anything, just agree, and Candy will blow your mind. Agreed? Looking back, I think this might be a CIA technique. Maybe it was just the endorphins. I agreed. All right, now Candy wants to be taken, so get to it, and you better not disappoint me. I stayed silent while she got me ready. Then she got on all fours and presented herself. My moisture-seeking rocket found its target. It was as wet as Scotland in September. Our subsequent encounters were variations of the first. We had sex, she got me aroused again, and then we had sex again. Her favorite position was doggy style. She also enjoyed talking dirty. When she talked like that, I couldn't tell if she hated me or if she was really into it. I guessed it was a bit of both because it intensified with each encounter. Organizing these meetings became increasingly difficult. Sneaking around turned out to be much harder than I had imagined. Most of these difficulties arose because Linda called me at every opportunity to inform me where she was and to assure me she wasn't cheating on me. This made it much harder for me to cheat on her. I also assumed it was difficult for Candace to hide this from Dawn, but we never talked about it. When we got together, it was just a damn marathon. While my affair with Candy continued, I was surprised to find that I had almost entirely lost my hostility towards Linda. Each rare rendezvous of hot sex with Linda's best friend made me appreciate making love to my wife even more. After every illicit encounter with Candy, I felt increasingly comfortable with Linda. We were getting back to where we used to be. I appreciated the insatiable sex with Candy, but it also made me value the tender connection with Linda. I wondered if she felt the same way while juggling her sex with Hunter and still loving me. The only awkward moments at first were when the four of us were together. Dawn or Linda would make completely innocent remarks that made my brain scream. Don't look at Candace. Don't look at Candace. Don't you dare look at Candace. For instance, Dawn once said, I admire you, Ryan. I know it's been tough for you. You chose the hard path. You could have hired an attractive call girl to get revenge, but you didn't. You offered Linda a chance to make amends, and she did. Good job, brother. While I was thinking, why does Dawn think I don't deserve more than an adulteress? My reason kicked in, saying, don't you dare, idiot, make eye contact with Candace. So I said, thanks, brother. Candace seemed completely calm. I have to admit, there's something to the idea that women are better at compartmentalizing their lives. For me, conversations with a sexual undertone were not easy. While our kids played and the adults drank wine, Linda looked at Dawn and Candace and said, you helped Ryan and me get back together. Then she kissed me. After we broke the kiss, all I could think was, don't look at Candace, don't look at Candace. This was relatively easy, since Candace also avoided making eye contact with me in such situations. Candace and Candy seemed like completely different people. Candy would send me messages as our meetings approached. And yes, it was Candy, not Candace. I worried that I might be contributing to creating a split personality, but I dismissed the thought since I needed to save my marriage. Nothing worthwhile comes without costs. Candy sent me pictures of herself in seductive outfits. Yes, I had already seen her naked, but these pictures aroused me. I had sex with Candy to prove my point to her, Dawn, and Linda. I also had sex with her because she was hot. I had no idea if my relationships would survive in the end, but I hoped they would. I'm an idealistic ass. Candy was more than true to her word. She was a beast. Besides doggy style, she liked having her ankles on my shoulders or in reverse cowgirl. all positions that avoided heart-to-heart closeness and were just about sex, and dirty sex at that. The exception was the last night. We had more time than usual since we didn't have to worry about getting caught. After that night, Candace made it clear she was going to tell Don everything. We were going out with one last hurrah. It was the only time she allowed me to caress her. And it wasn't due to tender lovemaking, but through an impromptu 69, my tongue focused on the target in the center, then vigorously ravaged everything within an inch radius, while she pleasured me to completion. I think she squirted, but I'm not sure. From my perspective, it felt like honeycombs exploded in front of my nose at the same time a geyser erupted from Old Faithful. My ears were pinned by her thighs crushing my head. Then she rolled onto her back and lay there for a few moments, trembling all over. I was shaking a little myself, and my ears were ringing from how she clamped my skull in a vice. We lay in silence for several minutes, or maybe it was an hour. "How do you feel?" Candy broke the silence. "I think I just died. Maybe we should end on a high note and skip the second round." She actually giggled before saying in her girliest voice, "I was really hoping the rumors about you being a slacker weren't true." After that, I had 2 more orgasms, and I have no idea how many she had. We were both so loud and vocal that I'm surprised other couples having sex in that cheap motel didn't report us to the management for disturbing their own activities. We definitely went out with a bang and more than a few whimpers. After our last wild sex session, I took a shower first and managed to mostly restore my balance. Candy left, and when the bathroom door opened again, Candy was gone forever. Candace emerged from the bathroom in her usual modest attire. Her behavior spoke for itself. We were done. It was good. Indulging in sweet treats from time to time is a pleasure, but a constant sweet diet will kill you. Candace left before me. There was no farewell kiss, just a discussion about what we would do next. She was going to tell Don everything that evening, and after that, we would all tell Linda. After all, it was a family matter. Candace would tell Don, and then we would all meet at my house. I told Linda that Don and Candace would come after the kids were in bed. It was time to lay everything on the table. Something happened with Don, so he was going to be late, so it was just me, Candace, and Linda. I went first. "Linda, I am fully ready to forgive you. In fact, I already have. But before you accept that, I think Candace should speak first." Linda was excited to hear my words, then looked at Candace questioningly. "I had sex with Ryan." Linda immediately hugged Candace. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh God, you really are my sister." Candace hugged her back and said, "It was the only way. I love you." "It was you," Linda said passionately. "Now I don't have to worry about Ryan getting sick or someone getting pregnant. Thank you." Everything didn't go as I expected. I thought the mix-up was a complete mess. I didn't believe anyone was sincere in what they said. It turned out I was wrong, at least when it came to women. When I make a mistake, I admit it, painful as it may be. I joined them in a group hug. I looked at Linda and said, "Everything is truly forgiven. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." She jumped on me and kissed me. "Thank you, my love. You will never regret this." Well, I guess we all learned valuable lessons here. In the end, I had to calm her down. I looked at Candace and said, "You showed me a lot, and I want to apologize to you. I put you in an awkward position, and you showed me the true meaning of love. I was wrong to ask that of you. You made me better by showing what real love is." Candace hugged me tightly and kissed me, not like recently at all. "I did it for both of you. You two belong together." The doorbell rang. I assumed it was Don. "I'll go open it now." Approaching the door, I realized I needed to say a lot. I learned a lot about myself and the people close to me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized that people around me are much more selfless than I am. I tried to show how hypocritical those around me were, only to discover that it wasn't true. It was actually my male ego. I had to apologize to everyone, but especially to Don. "Don, the women in there are crying their hearts out. Honestly, I feel like crying myself. I've learned quite a few things about myself, and not all of them are good. I've learned a thing or two about myself too. I think we all may have messed up with this whole male ego thing." I dismissed that idea too lightly. Don had a hoarse tone and a strange expression on his face. It took me a while to understand it, as it was a feeling I had never seen in Don before. And then it hit me. Barely contained rage. Ah, that's what it was. At that moment, I had two questions. Firstly, where did he quickly find a cricket bat? Secondly, would I have enough half a second's head start to reach the back door before an enraged mastodon with a bad knee caught up with me? I decided the answer to the first question could wait and bolted through the house to the back door. Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments. And we'll see you on the next story.